Hey guys, welcome to this video on the basis from the drum step remix of Nasty Anthem I did. This is not going to be a seriously sick synth sounds video because I did some stuff in the main mixer up here which I can't recreate in a combinator to put up for download, so unfortunately you're just going to have to bear with me and take a look at the patch. So let me just reactivate these effects here because this is already maybe my 5th or 4th take because my neighbor keeps working his freaking chainsaw in the backyard. So this is how the basses sound, and yeah, let's take a look at one of them. So this bass is composed out of several Thors, 2 Thors to be exact, and there's a lot of automation going on. Okay, let's get started. I haven't had this RNS open in quite a long while, so please excuse if I have to rediscover my patch live as I'm doing this right now. Because it's been almost, I'm pretty sure it's been like at least half a year since I made this tune, and I have absolutely no idea how I made any of this. Okay, so the first Thor sounds pretty simple if you take off all the effects. It's just a pretty raw synth sound here with some automation. This automation is routed to the amount. So you can see down here in the sequencer, if I zoom in here a bit, actually I don't have blocks mode on, but yeah. So if you take a look at these automation lanes, you can see that the LFO starts modulating the amplitude gain, or the amplifier gain rather, not the amplitude gain, the amplifier gain, and also there's some automation on the mixer of the Thor, which controls the level of the third oscillator. Now for oscillators, I've got 2 analog ones with both square waves, and then I've got this phase modulation oscillator, which I'm pretty sure just produces a sine wave right now. So that's just some level automation there. I then sent that into a shaper with some sine drive on there, and yeah, that's pretty much the Thor patch, except, you know, for basic stuff like amp envelope and half open filter. That then goes into a vocoder, which doesn't do that much right now, just takes out some frequency bands, and then I also use the shift knob. I told you about the shift knob before, it can really give some flavor to a synth. And then the most important thing is a Scream 4 distortion. I mean, without. And then as I turn it on. Okay, now about the Scream 4, I've got the damage section on, obviously, with a distortion, full tone, and like 2/3 presence maybe. I've also got the cut section. I'm cutting all mids, I'm boosting the highs, boosting the lows. And then the interesting thing about this, though, is the body section. Now, let me mute the Scream automation here. Boring, but if I activate the Scream automation, take a look at the scale right here. This is pretty cool because you can use the body section to add kind of like a wow effect to your synths. So the way I did this here was I used type B, a relatively high resonance, because obviously you need some resonance to make this work, and I left the auto setting on 0. Just see if I did some routing on the back. Looks like I didn't. Okay. So that's the basic synth. I now did some equalization. I took out some space to free up the snare. Also boosted the highs to make it a little bit more crisp. And then I added some tape distortion to make it really nasty. Some reverb. And a compressor. But that's for sidechaining, I think. I'm pretty sure that's for sidechaining. So yeah, really all this is some smart automation, and I think the character of the synth comes from the body section in the Scream 4. If I take that off, it's not very interesting. But the body section really helps out. Now, if you're wondering where that hammering comes from, that's from the LFO. As you can see, I routed LFO 1 to the amplifier gain. And at first, you can't really hear the automation. Let me deactivate the automation here. Now, This is how the synth would sound if you had it off. Now watch as I increase the amount on the amplitude gain. Now all I did was I had an LFO, standard key synced, tempo synced triplet LFO here with a sine wave, and I then automated in the sequencer so that it would rise like this. Which is why we get that sustained note at the beginning of the bar. Now let's move on to the other synth. Let me just unsolo this, and let's move over to this synth. Let's listen to it. Kind of similar. So once again, I have got 3 square waves. I've got 3 square waves here. And they all go into a filter. And the filter's got some automation. And that then goes into a shaper bipulse. And I've also got some effects. Now let me just turn these off. And then we'll take a look at how this synth builds up with all the devices. Okay. So once again, it's not very spectacular. It's very, very simple without any effects. You can hear the effect of the filter only very subtly. That's because I've got a 6 dB filter on there instead of the standard 24 dB. Let me just show you the difference here. Maybe I should deactivate the shaper. And the 6 dB just filters much more subtly. Then of course the shaper destroys the signal. Bipulse is a really good mode for that. Then the same thing with the amplitude gain, amplifier gain, I'm sorry. And then once again the vocoder. And I did the same trick here with the other synth. Just I think you can hear it much better over here because it's composed out of clearer waves. The shift knob is just really useful here. Another scream distortion unit, and this time I used it on fuzz. And yeah, fuzz is quite nice for that kind of stuff. Tone is at pretty high level, and presence about 2/3 again. I did the same thing with the body automation. Of course, because I wanted to spread this sound across the stereo spectrum, pan it left and right, I had to keep the sounds relatively similar in order to just, not to confuse the ears of the listener too much. So yeah, there you have that. Added some reverb, and then compressed it quite heavily. Just to get it really clicky and fat. I also cut 200 Hz again, just to make room for the snare. And that's one synth. And then here's the other. And then I went over to the mixer, and here you have both the synths. And instead of keeping them in the center like this, I panned one to the left, just a tiny bit, not a lot. And then I panned the other one to the right. And that gives a nice stereo spread. Don't overdo it though, because this is just too brutal. You want a nice subtle stereo spread here. So that's the way I did those synths. Yeah. So I hope this video was kind of helpful. I know, I'm sorry I can't upload these as a combinator file. But yeah, hopefully you can still pick up some information, pick up some tips. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. Dorincourt out.